Rev up your engines! Mustang with the 4-cylinder ecoboost engine. We can see what's held up, what hasn't held up, but we're going to notice something right away. And that has to do with the previous owner. This is a 2016, right? And this engine, as you can tell, obviously is not the original one. If you read it closely, it was the 7th of February, 2020. And why is that? Because the original owner blew the engine. The original owner souped this thing up. He did a 1/4 mile in 8 seconds. That is really fast, much faster than stock. And obviously, he blew the engine up. If you remember the past of Mustangs, people always liked the V8s that were made in Cleveland. They liked the ones that were made in Cleveland or the ones that were made in Windsor, Ontario, up north. They do a good job making engines. Americans drive like maniacs. You get a 4-cylinder engine, it isn't made just right. Americans are going to blow them up. Now, the one made in Cleveland, realize it has forged crank. It has forged connecting rods. Forging makes them stronger. These are much better engines than the ones that are made in Spain. And from what I've read, they're going to make most of the engines here in the United States. They're going to upgrade this particular one. This is a 2.3 liter Ford, and they're going to make a new 2.3 liter Ford that's only going to be made in Cleveland. Now, of course, it's high tech. It's got a turbocharger on it. It's got aftermarket exhaust, like I say. The guy modified the vehicle. He's got an oil catch can the guy stuck on. It's got the factory electric power steering, gasoline direct injection. Now stock, these things go from 318 to about 346 horsepower. This one's got to be a lot more in stock to do the 1/4 mile in 8 seconds. Now of course it's the same car as the V8 Mustang. It just has a 4-cylinder engine with a whole bunch of horsepower in it. They're sharp looking cars. Just realize one thing about this 4-cylinder engine. Stock, and this isn't stock, but a stock one is exactly the same speed, 0 to 60, and 0 to 100, it's only 1/10 of a second faster than the V6 engine. The main reason they went to these 4-cylinder engines was because, like I said, they were made in Spain. Ford decided to sell their cars in England and European market they never had before. And they have all kinds of taxation if you got a big V8 engine. So they make 4-cylinder engines that are small and powerful. They do the same thing with motorcycles. Over there, you don't see too many 1,200cc motorcycles because they tax the crap out of them. But you see a bunch of 600cc screaming motorcycles because there's less tax on them, so they drive those instead of the bigger ones. Since this has the engine made in Cleveland, like I say, they're much better engines. The guy was doing 1/4 miles in 8 seconds. He was beating the heck out of the engine. You can't really blame the engine. On the other hand though, I've had customers with the Spanish engines, stock ones, and they had all kinds of problems when they got 60, 70, 80,000 miles with crap wearing out on them. If you're going to buy one of these, see if you can get one that's got a Cleveland engine in it. Now the owner of this, he wants me to check it out because he doesn't know what the guy did to the car. So out comes the fancy computer. So we're getting it hooked up here. On the idiot lights, all the cute little maps are there. Here it comes. We'll do intelligent diagnosis. Do an event scan. Should be pretty fast because it's a new car. We'll do diagnosis. And we're going to do a smart scan of everything. And you can see it's going through all the communication protocols. Look at all this crap it's going to go through. So while we're waiting to go through all that stuff, this is why I like this particular car. It's a 6-speed standard transmission. I don't really like the ones with those 10-speed automatics. They're not really made for a 4-cylinder engine. They're really made for V8 engines. I drove the V8 Mustangs with the 10-speed and I loved it. It actually did the 1/4 mile faster than I could do it because the computer could shift faster. But those are really set up for V8 engines. They use them in the Ford trucks. It's not really made for a 4-cylinder engine. Well, now it's done its thing. You see, there's some red stuff. Well, there's a problem with the ABS system. We'll check that out. Missing communication with the body camera. You often get that. That's not something really I'd even worry about. He doesn't care. He has no problems with that. And that could easily be a false code, so we're going to erase it. We'll just clear the fault. Yes, it's cleared. Data received from ECM is invalid. Invalid data from ABS. Again, it's ABS crap. So what we're going to do there is erase that too. And then if it ever comes back, we'd have to check something out. But a lot of times, it won't. There's some more codes. battery voltage, missing other communication. Could easily be because the battery was replaced and it wasn't reset. So again, what we're going to do is erase that too. All of these codes could have been created by a weak battery, changing a battery. So we're going to erase them off. If they don't come back on him, he doesn't have to worry about anything. Last code that it has, again, battery communication. So we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to erase that too. Now everything's green. So we're going to look at the important data. We're going to look at the running data from the computer system, PCM, and we'll read the data stream. Start her up. Here you go with all the data. We're going to analyze it all. Remember, it's color coordinated. If it's blue, they're all okay. Accelerator pedal works good. It's at 0. We'll step on the gas. It opens up. We know that's working. We're going to see what kind of shape it's running, how the guy modified it, if he made any screw-ups. There's no error and any other camshaft stuff. Let's say the guy screwed up, changed the cams, and did a bad job. That data's going to show on this machine. Now it is, and that's a good thing. A lot of times guys modify engines. Now, I don't think the guy modified the engine. He blew the original, and he might have modified that. But this is the newer Cleveland factory one, so it's probably still stock. It looks pretty much stock. So complex you can get the cylinder head temperature. Turbocharger boosted 14.89 psi. That's a lot of boost. It even shows you not only the fuel rail pressure that is desired, 255 psi, and that it's putting out 240, 255, so it's practically perfect. You're always going to get a little bit of differential between the two. A lot of cars have the grills that open and close in front of the radiator. You can even analyze them with this thing. There's no errors, but if there is, you can test them with these things. It does have gasoline direct injection, as you can see. Injector 1, 2, 3, no error, no error. 4, no error. Now the long-term fuel trim is, it's adding 4.69%. So it's running slightly lean, but the guy set this up for speed. You need them leaner for higher speed. You could set it up a different way if you wanted. In this case, there's nothing wrong. I mean, it's blue and it's not that bad off, but you'll often see it on guys that set them up for speed because you gotta run them a little bit lean for speed. And there's no problem with misfire, so obviously the guy had it set up correctly. That's long-term over long driving, because you drive at higher speeds, it'll be a little bit lean. You notice as it's idling now, it's going between subtracting a little bit of fuel and adding a little bit of fuel, which is normal, so it's set up good for idle too. The mileage on here matches the mileage on the dash. Turbocharger's working fine, it's got no errors. So the vehicle's in excellent shape. The guy did have it tuned correctly by someone. Now when he's driving the car, normally gets 22 miles a gallon or so, which isn't bad, but he says when he hammers it, he gets 17. These are not 4-cylinder engines to get gas mileage. These are 4-cylinder engines for power. Now, it's a Mustang. It's got plenty of zip, and as you find out, they're not the smoothest riding cars on bumps because they've got a relatively small wheelbase. They're not bad, but of course, it's not a really cushy ride. We're going to take it on a highway, we're going to see what it does. Now let's see what this thing can do. Yes, that little 4-cylinder engine has a lot of horsepower. It's a 4-cylinder engine, but it's very smooth power. Now yes, it doesn't make the sound of a V8. It doesn't have that rumble, but he wants to make it noisier. He got a fancy catback system to make it a little bit louder. Now, we don't know if it's going to affect the running. If he does that, we'll reset it and look at it when he brings it back to see if the data's saying it might not affect it all that much. It's an excellent car. He got something that's fun, but if you're serious about driving, you got to get the 6-speed standard. These are not any fun to drive with that stupid 10-speed automatic. That's just the way they are. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Dexter says, I got no two Chevy. The interior and the exterior lights are going out. I was driving around, the exterior lights failed, and the dashboard lights too. The car ran. I kept driving, and then the lights restored themselves. Second time it happened the last month. What caused this? I need to start troubleshooting. It's an 02 Malibu. I started looking for another car. It's amazing it lasted that long. Since you're getting something that goes and comes and goes and comes, there's only really 2 things that normally do that in a Chevy. As all GM products, they've always had ground problems with the ground system. In a car, you need positive electricity. You also need ground power to complete the circuit. GM has history of ground failures. So check the grounding wires. You probably just have a bad ground wire somewhere, and it comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. Now, the other thing that can do that would be the body control module. That ultimately controls all the lights. It's a small computer. And as a small computer, it can shut itself off, short out, and then start working again, and then stop working again. So it could be a bad body control module. Now, you're never going to be able to figure that find out. Those things are so complex. Mechanic like me with a really expensive scan tool to do bidirectional testing. But first thing, look for ground shorts, because GM's a notorious that you probably have a ground short, a loose ground wire or a corroded connector, and then it'll come and go. What you do would be you'd get a diagram with all the ground wires on the car and start checking them out. There's a whole bunch of them, so you really need a wiring diagram with it. If you want to do it yourself, I use alldata.diy.com. 20-something bucks a year, you get a subscription, and it'll have all the ground wiring for your car and all kinds of other information too. That's the easiest way to get that information. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.